The council chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished metal and crystal. 847 species had gathered here, their representatives filling the massive space with bodies of every imaginable shape and size. Some breathed methane. Others existed as clouds of sentient gas. A few were so small they needed mechanical suits just to be seen. But today, they all agreed on one thing. Humanity had to be stopped. Commander Tae-1 stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by holographic projections of alien faces. His uniform was crisp and military, his expression calm despite the situation. Behind him, projected on massive screens, Earth rotated slowly in space. His home? 4 billion humans living their lives, unaware that 847 civilizations were about to decide their fate. The speaker, a crystalline being older than human civilization, raised its appendage. The chamber fell silent. Its voice echoed through translation devices in 1,000 languages. The vote is complete. 847 species have cast their judgment. The result is unanimous. Tae-1 felt his jaw tighten but kept his face neutral. The human species is deemed a threat to galactic peace. They have developed nuclear weapons, biological weapons, and kinetic bombardment systems. They war among themselves constantly. Their expansion into their own solar system shows aggressive territorial behavior. If they develop faster than light travel, they will become unstoppable. The speaker's crystalline form pulsed with light. Therefore, the Council has voted. Humanity will be placed under servitude. All weapons will be surrendered. All military forces will be disbanded. Earth will accept Council oversight for the next 10,000 years. After that time, if humanity has learned peace, they may petition for limited independence. The chamber erupted in approval. Clicking, chirping, buzzing sounds of agreement filled the air. Tae-1 waited for silence. Then he spoke, his voice amplified across the chamber. No. The word hung in the air like a bomb. The speaker leaned forward. You do not understand, human. This is not a negotiation. This is the judgment of 847 civilizations. You are one species, confined to one system. We number in the quadrillions across 1 million worlds. You cannot refuse. Tae-1 looked directly at the crystalline being. I just did. Humanity rejects your judgment. We will not surrender our weapons. We will not disband our military. We will not accept servitude. If you want Earth, you'll have to take it. The chamber exploded in shocked sounds. Several species began shouting simultaneously through their translators. One ambassador, a being that looked like an octopus made of mercury, spoke up. This is madness. You have primitive chemical rockets and fusion drives. We have antimatter engines and quantum tunneling. You have kinetic weapons and nuclear missiles. We have matter disruptors and stellar converters. Your entire fleet numbers perhaps 5,000 ships. We can field millions. Why would you choose extinction over peace? Tae-1 smiled, and there was nothing friendly in it. Because we're human. We don't kneel. Not to you. Not to anyone. He touched his wrist device. Behind him, the projection of Earth changed. Now it showed orbital fortresses, armed satellites, hidden weapons platforms in the asteroid belt, military installations on Mars and Europa. Then footage played. Humans in training. Millions of them. Marines boarding ships. Pilots and fighters. Engineers building weapons. You think you know us because you've watched us for 50 years, Tae-1 said. You've seen us fight each other and assumed we're divided. You're wrong. The moment you decided to enslave us, every nation on Earth united. Every human is now a soldier. Every factory is now an armory. Every citizen is ready to die rather than submit. He pointed at the assembled species. You had 17 species before us that you peacefully integrated into servitude. They surrendered because they were afraid. They chose survival over freedom. Humans don't make that choice. We've been fighting and dying for freedom since we lived in caves. We've burned our own cities, killed our own people, destroyed our own civilizations in the name of liberty. What makes you think we won't do the same to you? The speaker's voice was cold now. You are emotional, irrational. This proves you need our guidance. We will send a peacekeeping fleet. 10,000 ships. When you see them darken your skies, you will understand your mistake. We offer you 1 solar week to reconsider. After that, we will come. And you will kneel. Taewon shook his head. We won't. And here's what you don't understand about humans. Every one of our wars, every atrocity we've committed against each other, every weapon we've ever designed, we did while holding back. We've had rules of war, Geneva Conventions, limits on what we'll do to each other because we're all human. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to something deadly quiet. You're not human, which means we have no reason to hold back. No rules, no mercy. No limits? You want to enslave us? Come try, but remember this moment. Remember that you had a choice. You could have left us alone. You could have traded with us, talked with us, been our friends. Instead, you voted for slavery. He straightened his uniform. So, when your fleets burn, when your soldiers die, when your people cry out and beg for mercy, remember that you started this? We're going to finish it. The transmission cut off. Taewon's hologram vanished from the chamber. For a moment, there was silence. Then the chamber erupted in debate. Some species called for immediate attack. Others suggested negotiation. A few, very few, quietly suggested leaving the humans alone. The speaker silenced them all. The human speaks from fear and bravado. No single system species has ever resisted council judgment. They will see our fleet and understand reality. Prepare the peacekeeping force. 10,000 ships should be sufficient. We have never needed more. Across the galaxy, the Council's war machine began to move. 10,000 warships, each carrying weapons that could crack planets. Crews that had never known defeat. Commanders confident in their overwhelming superiority. They would arrive at Earth in 1 week. On Earth, in a bunker deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean, Tae-1 stood before a holographic display showing Council ship movements. Around him stood the other commanders of Earth's defense forces. Admiral Jiwoo, young and fierce, commanded the fighter wings. Dr. Hana, brilliant and cold, oversaw weapons research. Dozens of others, all humanity's best. Tae-1 looked at them. 1 week. They're sending 10,000 ships. We have 5,000. We're outgunned, outnumbered, and outteched. Statistically, we have 0 chance of winning. Jiwoo grinned. Good, I hate easy fights. Hana spoke up, her voice clinical. The quantum entanglement weapons are ready. They'll be surprised. Tae-1 nodded. Make no mistake. Most of us will die. Maybe all of us. But we're going to make them regret this vote. Every single one of those 847 species is going to learn what it costs to threaten humanity. He looked at each commander in turn. 1 week. Get ready. And remember, we're not fighting for victory. We're fighting to make them bleed. If we're going down, we're taking as many of them with us as we can. The commanders saluted and dispersed. The countdown to war had begun. The Council fleet emerged from faster than light. Travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 10,000 warships, each one a masterpiece of alien engineering. Some were organic, grown rather than built. Others were purely mechanical, covered in weapons and armor. They moved in perfect formation, confident and unstoppable. Admiral Caution commanded the fleet from his flagship, a vessel 3 kilometers long that housed 10,000 crew members. He was Vorath, one of the founding species of the Council. His people had been traveling the stars for 50,000 years. He had personally overseen the peaceful integration of 4 other species into Council servitude. This would be his 5th. He looked at the tactical display showing Earth and its surrounding space, primitive, a few thousand small ships scattered throughout the system, orbital stations around Earth and Mars, mining facilities in the asteroid belt. Nothing that posed a real threat. Open a channel to the human homeworld, he ordered. His communication officer complied. Koshin's face appeared on every screen across Earth. His translator converted his words into all human languages simultaneously. Humans of Earth, this is Admiral Koshin of the Council Peacekeeping Fleet. You have had 1 week to consider your position. We have arrived with 10,000 warships. Your resistance is futile. Surrender now, and you will be treated fairly under Council servitude. Resist, and we will be forced to use violence. You have 1 of your hours to respond. The response came in 30 seconds. Commander Taewon's face appeared on Koshin's screen. Behind him, Koshin could see what looked like a military command center. Humans rushing back and forth. Screens showing battle displays. Admiral Koshin. This is Commander Taewon of the Terran Defense Force. We received your message. Here's our response. Taewon smiled. Go to hell. The transmission ended. Koshin sighed. He had expected this. Young species always needed a demonstration of force before they understood reality. He turned to his weapons officer. Target their orbital stations. Disable them with minimum casualties. Perhaps when they see their defenses fall, they'll reconsider. Yes, Admiral. The fleet moved forward, engines glowing as they accelerated toward Earth. They maintained formation, textbook perfect. This would be over quickly. Then the asteroid belt exploded, not literally. But thousands of objects that sensors had registered as simple rocks suddenly activated. They were ships. Human ships. Small, fast, and heavily armed. They had been hiding, waiting, using the asteroids as cover. Koshin watched in surprise as the human ships accelerated at impossible speeds, far faster than their technology should allow. They crashed into his formations like missiles. Evasive action, he ordered, but it was too late for the outer ships. The human vessels didn't try to fight fair. They rammed into Council ships at full speed, their hulls packed with explosives. Suicide attacks. Dozens of Council ships erupted in flames as human pilots deliberately crashed into them. Barbarians, Koshin's second officer shouted. They're killing themselves. But the suicide ships were just the opening move. Behind them came the real fleet. 5,000 human warships, emerging from behind Earth's moon, from Mars' orbit, from hidden positions throughout the system. They didn't move in formation. They swarmed like insects. Chaotic and unpredictable, Admiral Jewel led the fighter wings personally, her ship a small dart of metal and fury. She had 400 pilots under her command, each one flying fighters that were barely more than engines with guns attached. They dove into the Council fleet like sharks into a school of fish. Break their formation, she shouted over the com. Don't let them coordinate. Stay fast, stay random. Her pilots obeyed with the discipline that came from months of preparation. They wove between the massive Council ships, too small and quick for the alien targeting systems to track reliably. Their weapons were primitive by Council standards. Kinetic rounds, missiles, lasers, but they targeted weak points, exhausts, sensor arrays, communication dishes. One of her pilots, a young woman named Yoonji, dove straight into the engine exhaust of a Council cruiser and fired everything she had. The cruiser's reactor destabilized and exploded, taking 2 other Council ships with it. Yoonji didn't survive the explosion, but she had taken 3 enemy ships with her. That was the pattern of the battle. Humans trading 1 ship for 2 or 3 Council vessels. Mathematically unsustainable. Tactically insane. Strategically horrifying for the Council forces, who had never faced an enemy willing to die like this. Koshin watched his tactical display with growing horror. His fleet was supposed to be invincible. They had better technology, better weapons, better ships. But the humans weren't fighting like a normal enemy. They were fighting like every ship was a weapon, every pilot a suicide bomber waiting to happen. All ships formed defensive clusters, he ordered. Protect the carriers. Focus fire on their capital ships. The Council fleet began to regroup, their superior training and technology finally asserting itself. They started targeting the human capital ships, the larger vessels that couldn't maneuver as easily. Antimatter beams and plasma torpedoes tore through human hulls. Ships that had taken months to build were Destroyed in seconds, the humans were losing ships 3 times faster than the Council. It should have been a victory. Then Dr. Hana activated her surprise dot from Earth's moon, a weapon that looked like a massive satellite array powered up. It had been hidden there, disguised as a research station. The Council sensors had dismissed it as harmless. It wasn't harmless. Hana, sitting in a control room deep beneath Earth's surface, entered the activation code. The weapon fired. There was no beam, no visible projectile. But across the battlefield, 50 Council ships simply stopped working. Their engines died, their weapons powered down. Life support failed. The quantum entanglement field that Hana had developed disrupted every electronic system within range. And the Council ships were entirely dependent on electronics. 50 ships became floating coffins in an instant. The human ships, built with hardened systems and manual backups because humanity had never trusted automation completely, kept fighting. Caution stared at his display. What? What was that? His science officer was frantically analyzing sensor data. Unknown technology, Admiral. Some kind of quantum disruption field. Our ships have no defense against it. Before Caution could respond, the human fleet pressed their advantage. They focused everything on the disabled ships, destroying them before they could restart their systems. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Council fleet's superior technology and training slowly ground down the human forces. One by one, human ships fell. The suicide attacks became less frequent as they ran out of pilots willing to make the sacrifice. The fighter wings were decimated. The capital ships burned, but the Council fleet was dying too. For every 3 human ships destroyed, they lost one of their own. The math was in their favor, but the cost was unthinkable. No single battle in Council history had ever cost so many ships. Finally, with 70% of the human fleet destroyed and 40% of his own fleet gone, Caution made a decision that would haunt him. All ships, withdraw. Return to Rally Point Beta. His officers stared at him in shock. Admiral, we're winning. Look at the display. Caution roared. We've lost 4,000 ships. 4,000. To defeat a primitive species that shouldn't have been able to scratch our paint. If we stay, we might win, but there will be nothing left to claim victory with. We withdraw, now. The Council fleet began to retreat, their faster-than-light drives powering up. The human ships pursued them as far as they could, firing until the very last moment. As the last Council ship vanished, the human fleet stopped. Of the 5,000 ships they had started with, only 1,500 remained. The orbital space around Earth was filled with debris and bodies, both human and alien. In the command center, Taewon watched the enemy flee. His face was covered in blood from a minor wound, his uniform torn. Around him, his staff was silent, processing what had just happened. They had won, technically, but the cost had been devastating. 3,500 ships? Over 200,000 crew members, dead. Ji-woo limped into the command center, her flight suit burned and torn. She had survived, but barely. Of her 400 pilots, only 93 had made it back. They ran, she said, her voice hoarse. We made them run. Tae-won nodded slowly. They'll be back. With more ships. More weapons. They won't underestimate us again. Hannah's voice came through the comm system. The quantum weapon is destroyed. They targeted it specifically once they figured out what it was. I can build another, but it will take months. Tae-won looked at the tactical display. Earth was safe. For now. But everyone in the room knew this was just the beginning. Send a message to all civilian centers, he ordered. Tell them we won the first battle. Tell them we drove them off. Tell them humanity stands free. He paused, looking at the casualty report scrolling across his screen. And start building more ships. They'll come back. And when they do, we need to be ready to bleed them again. Across the galaxy in the Council chambers, the news of the battle's outcome arrived. 4,000 ships lost. 40% casualties against a pre-faster-than-light species. The Council members were stunned into silence. The speaker's voice was quiet when it finally spoke. This changes nothing. Prepare the second fleet. 20,000 ships this time? And tell them no mercy. 15 years. That's how long the war lasted. 15 years of blood, fire, and death across hundreds of star systems. The Council kept sending fleets, each one larger than the last. 20,000 ships. 50,000. 100,000. They threw everything they had at humanity, certain that eventually the humans would run out of ships, soldiers, or will to fight. They were wrong on all counts. The war changed everything. Both sides learned, adapted, and evolved. But the humans learned faster, adapted better, and evolved in ways the Council never expected. In year 3, humanity captured its first Council ship intact. It was a small frigate, disabled by a lucky hit during a skirmish near Jupiter. The crew had abandoned it, thinking it would self-destruct. And single quotes Dr. Hannah led the team that dissected it. For 6 months, they tore apart every system, every component, every line of code, and then they understood it. Faster than light travel. The technology that had kept humanity trapped in their own solar system. Within a year, the first human ship equipped with reverse-engineered FTL drives left the solar system. It was crude, inefficient, and barely worked. But it worked. Commander Tae-1, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, stood on the bridge of the indomitable humanity's first faster-than-light warship. Around him, his crew worked with focused intensity. They were heading to a Council colony world. A mining operation on a planet called Helicon 4. Drop out of FTL in 3. The navigator announced. Reality snapped back into focus. Ahead of them, Helicon 4 hung in space, a brown dwarf planet with 3 orbital stations and a small defense fleet of 20 ships. They don't know we're here yet, the sensor officer reported. Their scanners aren't designed to detect human FTL signatures. Tae-1 smiled grimly. Good, launch all fighters. Target the defense fleet first, then the stations. We're not here to conquer. We're here to send a message. The Indomitable and its escort fleet of 50 ships tore into the unprepared Council forces. The battle was over in 2 hours. The Council ships, built for fighting other Council vessels using agreed-upon tactics, had no answer for human aggression and unpredictability. When it was over, Tae-1 broadcast a message to the colony below. This is Fleet Admiral Tae-1 of Earth. Your fleet is destroyed. Your stations are gone. We could bombard your planet, kill everyone down there, but we won't. We're not here to murder civilians. We're here to prove a point. He paused. You thought you could attack Earth without consequences? You were wrong. Every Council world is now a target. Every station, every fleet, every colony, you started this war? We're bringing it to your doorstep. The Indomitable jumped back into FTL, leaving the colony intact but defenseless. The message spread across Council space like wildfire. The humans could reach them now. Nowhere was safe. Admiral Jiwoo, now commanding her own carrier group, became a legend during these years. The Council called her the Ghost because her fleet never stayed in one place. She would strike a target, destroy it, and vanish before reinforcements could arrive. Her tactics were studied, feared, and impossible to counter. On one mission, she led her fleet deep into Council territory, to a shipyard that produced a quarter of the Council's heavy cruisers. It was defended by 300 ships and considered untouchable. Jiwoo attacked it with 80 ships. She didn't win through superior firepower. She won through deception and ruthlessness. Her fleet broadcast false transponder codes, pretending to be a Council patrol returning from a mission. By the time the shipyard realized the truth, Jiwoo's ships were already inside their defensive perimeter. The battle was brutal. Jiwoo lost 40 ships. But the shipyard was destroyed, along with 200 Council vessels and the facility that built them. It set back the Council's ship production by 2 years. The Council tried to hunt her down. They dedicated entire fleets to finding and destroying her. But Jiwoo was always one step ahead, fed by intelligence from human spies, captured Council officers, and her own tactical genius. Meanwhile, new human commanders rose to prominence. Lieutenant Doyun, a tactical prodigy, specialized in operating behind enemy lines. His fleet of raiders never numbered more than 30 ships, but they struck everywhere, creating chaos and forcing the Council to spread their forces thin, trying to protect everything. Engineer Mireille revolutionized human ship design. The Council ships were beautiful, elegant, and efficient. Mireille's designs were ugly, brutal, and effective. Her Reaper-class battleships looked like flying fortresses covered in armor and guns. They were slow, hard to maneuver, and could go toe-to-toe with Council dreadnoughts 3 times their size. The first Reaper-class ship, the Vengeance, proved itself in the Battle of Seti 7. It faced 5 Council heavy cruisers alone, while the rest of the human fleet was engaged elsewhere. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, all 5 Council ships were destroyed. The Vengeance was heavily damaged but survived. Colonel Hyon led the Marine Corps' units that specialized in boarding actions. The Council had rules about boarding enemy ships. There were protocols, agreements about treatment of prisoners, limits on what could be done during ship-to-ship combat. Hyon ignored all of it. His Marines were trained in zero-gravity combat, close-quarters fighting, and ship system sabotage. They boarded Council ships not to capture them but to kill the crew and steal the ship. In 5 years, Hyon's Marines captured over 300 Council vessels. Each one reverse-engineered and added to the human fleet. The Council tried everything. They attempted biological weapons, designing viruses specifically to target human DNA. Dr. Hannah's medical teams developed cures faster than the Council could deploy new diseases. They tried economic warfare, blockading human colonies and cutting off supply lines. Humanity simply colonized harsher environments, places the Council considered uninhabitable, moons with toxic atmospheres, planets with extreme gravity, asteroid clusters in radiation-heavy zones. Humans adapted, survived, and thrived. They tried. Propaganda, broadcasting messages to human colonies about the futility of resistance. Humans responded by broadcasting footage of Council atrocities, the attempted enslavement, the attacks on civilian targets. More Council species began to question the war. By year 12, the war had ground both sides down to exhausted shells of their former strength. The Council had lost millions of ships and trillions of credits. Their economy was in shambles. Several member species were on the verge of rebellion, questioning why they were fighting a war that benefited no one. Humanity had lost 3 million soldiers, countless ships, and entire colonies. But their population was growing. Every human child born during the war grew up knowing nothing but conflict. They were raised to be soldiers, engineers, and strategists. The next generation was harder, smarter, and more ruthless than the one before. In year 13, the turning point came at the Battle of Arcturus. The Council assembled a fleet of 50,000 ships, determined to end the war with one decisive victory. They would strike at humanity's largest colony outside Earth, a terraformed world called New Terra that housed 2 billion humans. Fleet Admiral Tae-1 met them with 5,000 ships. Every vessel humanity could spare. If they lost here, the war was over. The battle lasted 3 days. The Council fleet had overwhelming numbers and firepower, but Tae-1 had 15 years of experience fighting them. He knew their tactics, their weaknesses, their predictable patterns. He split his fleet into 50 groups of 100 ships each. They attacked from every direction, never staying still, never fighting fair. The Council fleet couldn't coordinate against so many targets. Their formations broke apart. Ship captains started making individual decisions instead of following fleet commands. Chaos. That's what Tae-1 wanted. Chaos favored the side willing to take risks. On the second day, Jiwoo led a suicide run against the Council flagship. She took 20 ships loaded with antimatter bombs and crashed them into the massive vessel. The flagship exploded, killing the Council admiral and his entire command staff. The Council fleet wavered. Without central command, they didn't know whether to retreat or press the attack. Tae-1 didn't give them time to decide. He threw everything at them. Ships that should have retreated to repair kept fighting. Damaged vessels rammed into enemy ships. Pilots with no ammunition used their ships as missiles. By the third day, the Council fleet broke. The survivors fled, leaving 30,000 destroyed ships behind. Humanity had lost 4,000 ships, but they had won. News of the Battle of Arcturus spread across the galaxy. 30,000 ships destroyed. An entire generation of Council warships gone. The economic cost was incalculable. The Council member species began to panic. Some called for peace. Others demanded total human genocide. The Council was fracturing, and everyone knew it. In his command center on New Terra, Tay-1 looked at the casualty reports. 4,000 ships, 200,000 crew, dead, but they had won. Against impossible odds, humanity had won. Zhewu entered the room, her uniform scorched from the battle. What now, Admiral? Tay-1 looked at the star map showing Council space. Now we push, they're weak, divided. We hit them everywhere at once. We make them regret ever hearing the word human. He activated the CUM system, broadcasting to every human ship, every colony, every soldier. This is Fleet Admiral Tay-1. We have won the Battle of Arcturus. The Council is broken. But the war isn't over. Not until every species that voted to enslave us understands the cost of that vote. We're taking the fight to them, all of them, no mercy, no surrender. We end this. Across human space, millions of soldiers prepared for the final push. The war was about to enter its deadliest phase. The Council was dying. Not quickly like a ship destroyed in battle, but slowly like a body bleeding from 1,000 cuts. After the Battle of Arcturus, the cracks that had been forming for years finally broke open. Member species began questioning everything. Why were they fighting? What were they protecting? How many more ships? How many more lives would they sacrifice to subdue one stubborn species? The answers varied by species, but the pattern was clear. The Council was fracturing. The Kelman were the first to break ranks. They were a peaceful species, traders and merchants who had joined the Council for protection and economic benefits. 15 years of war had bankrupted them. Their merchant fleets were conscripted as military transports. Their economy was in ruins. Their people were starving. Their representatives stood before the Council chamber and announced their withdrawal. We joined the Council for peace and prosperity. This war has brought us neither. The Kelman Empire officially declares neutrality. We will fight no more. The speaker tried to argue, to threaten, to demand compliance, but the Kelman simply left. And they weren't alone. Over the next 6 months, 47 species withdrew from the war. Some declared neutrality. Others simply stopped sending ships. A few even opened secret negotiations with humanity, offering intelligence in exchange for promises of protection. The Council, which once numbered 847 united species, was now barely holding 800 together. And the 3 founding species who had started the Council thousands of years ago watched their empire crumble: the Vorath, the Thesa, and the Kelman Primarch. These 3 species had built the Council, shaped its laws, and commanded its fleets. They refused to accept defeat at the hands of primitives from a backwater world. In a secret meeting on the Vorath homeworld, their leaders gathered. Admiral Caution, who had survived the first battle at Earth and risen to Supreme Commander, stood before a holographic display showing the entire galaxy. "We are losing," he said bluntly. "Not because the humans are stronger. Not because they have better technology. We're losing because our people don't have the will to fight anymore. They're soft, comfortable. They've forgotten what it means to sacrifice for victory." A Thesa commander, a being that looked like a floating jellyfish made of light, spoke up. "Then we must remind them. Or we must act without them." The third leader, a Kelman Primarch named Zeshka, agreed. "The other species are weak. They vote for peace because they fear the cost of war. But if we present them with a choice between peace and extinction, they will choose survival." Caution nodded. "Exactly. We prepare a final strike. 200,000 ships. Every planet killer weapon in our arsenal. We hit every human world simultaneously. Earth, New Terra, all their colonies. We glass them all in one coordinated attack. Total genocide." The Thesa commander pulsed with approval. "And if the other Council species refuse to participate?" "Then we do it ourselves," Caution said. The 3 founding species have enough ships. We don't need the others. Once humanity is destroyed, the Council will thank us. They'll understand we did what was necessary. They began planning the final assault. It would take months to gather the fleet, coordinate the attack, and position forces around every human world. But it would work. The humans, spread across dozens of systems, couldn't defend everywhere at once, but they had made a mistake. They assumed the other Council species would either help or stay out of the way. They were wrong. The intelligence reached Admiral Jiwoo through a Kelman defector, a merchant captain who had lost everything in the war and wanted revenge against the species, who had dragged his people into this conflict. He provided detailed information about the planned attack. Ship numbers, target coordinates, timing, everything. Jiwoo brought the information to Fleet Admiral Tae-won. They sat in a secure room on New Terra, the war map displayed between them showing the scope of the threat. 200,000 ships, Tae-won said quietly. Planet killers. They're going for total genocide. Jiwoo nodded. We can't fight them all. Not head-on. Even with everything we have, we'd be outnumbered 10-1. Then we don't fight them all. Tae-won zoomed in on the Council's 3 founding homeworlds. We do what they're planning to do to us. But we do it first. Jiwoo's eyes widened. You want to attack their homeworlds? No, Tae-won's expression was cold. I want to threaten to destroy their biospheres. Make them uninhabitable for their species but perfect for ours. Force them to back down or commit mutual genocide. He pulled up a file. At the top it read, Genesis Protocol. Dr. Hannah had developed it 5 years ago as a contingency. A tailored biological weapon, a virus that would spread across any planet with oxygen and water. It wouldn't kill the current inhabitants immediately, but it would alter the ecosystem at a fundamental level. Within 50 years, the planet would be toxic to most Council species but ideal for human colonization. If we release this, Tae-won explained, and they kill us, our deaths will mean nothing. Because in half a century, their worlds will be ours anyway. Their children will inherit dead planets. It's mutually assured destruction on a galactic scale. Jiwoo was quiet for a long moment. That's monstrous. Yes. Tae-won didn't look away from her. It is, but so is what they're planning. The difference is, we're only going to threaten it. Force them to choose between coexistence and mutual annihilation. And if they call our bluff, then it's not a bluff. Tae-won's voice was flat. If they kill us, they die too. Just slower. The decision was made, but Tae-won had one more card to play. He had a junior officer, Specialist Sojin, deliberately leak the Genesis Protocol to the Council. The leak was carefully crafted, designed to look accidental. A careless communication intercept, easily broken encryption. Just enough information to terrify without revealing the full plan. The leak worked better than they had hoped. Within days, news of the Genesis Protocol spread across Council space. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Civilian populations panicked. If humanity was destroyed, their worlds would become uninhabitable. Their children would suffer and die. The war suddenly became not just about subduing a rebellious species, but about species survival. Riots broke out on dozens of Council worlds. Governments fell. Species that had remained loyal to the Council suddenly began demanding peace. The pressure on the 3 founding species became enormous, but Caution and his allies pushed forward anyway. They didn't believe humans would actually use such a weapon. It was too monstrous, too final. Humans talked about freedom and morality. They wouldn't commit genocide, even to save themselves. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The 2 fleets prepared. 200,000 Council ships gathered at rally points across the galaxy. 15,000 human ships, everything Earth could muster, positioned themselves around their colony worlds. The Council fleet began to move. Their faster-than-light drives powering up for the final jump to human space. Then 300,000 ships appeared on the Council's sensors. It took a moment for Caution to understand what he was seeing. Those weren't human ships. They were Council ships. Vessels from 2/3 of the Council's member species, but they weren't coming to help him. They were coming to stop him. The communication came from the Kelman fleet commander. Admiral Kashin, this is Commander Varish of the Kelman Defense Force. We represent 600 member species of the Council. We are ordering you to stand down. This war is over. Caution stared at the display in shock. You're betraying the Council? We're saving it, Varish replied. And saving ourselves. We've reviewed the human genesis protocol. If you attack them, if they're destroyed, they'll release it. Our worlds will die. Our children will die. We will not allow you to drag us into mutual extinction because you're too proud to accept peace. Koshin's voice was cold. You're cowards. All of you. We're trying to save the galaxy from a species that will destroy us all if left unchecked. No, Varish said. You're trying to save your pride. The humans have proven they can't be enslaved. They can't be conquered. We can either accept that and make peace, or we can all die together. We choose peace. The FISA commander activated weapons. Then you're traitors. We'll destroy you first, then the humans. But before anyone could fire, Fleet Admiral Taewan's face appeared on every screen in both fleets. All ships. Stand down, now. He looked directly at Kashin. Admiral, you have two choices. Order your ships to withdraw, accept peace negotiations, and live. Or start this battle and watch as I release the Genesis Protocol on all three of your homeworlds. Not as a bluff. Not as a threat. As a certainty. Taewan's expression was absolutely serious. I have ships in position around Vorath Prime, Thysa 4, and Kelman Origin. Each one carries enough Genesis virus to contaminate the entire biosphere. You fire one shot at any human world, and I release them all. Your species will be extinct in 2 generations. Caution looked at his tactical display. Human ships had indeed appeared in orbit around all 3 homeworlds. Small ships, easy to miss in the chaos of war preparation. But each one represented the death of an entire species. You're bluffing, Kashan said, but his voice lacked conviction. Try me. Taewan leaned forward. You started this war because you thought we'd surrender rather than die. You were wrong. Now, you're about to learn we'll also commit genocide rather than be enslaved. Your choice, Admiral. Peace or extinction. The standoff lasted for 3 hours. The largest gathering of warships in galactic history, 500,000 vessels, all armed and ready. Fingers on triggers. One mistake away from the end of civilization. Finally, Kashen spoke. His voice was defeated. All Vorath ships, stand down. Withdraw to home space. The Thesa and Kelman Primarch. Commanders followed his lead. The war was over. The galaxy was quiet for the first time in 15 years. The silence felt strange, unnatural. Millions of soldiers who had known nothing but war suddenly had no enemies to fight. Shipyards that had built warships for over a decade didn't know what to build. Entire generations had grown up during the conflict, and now they had to learn how to live in peace, but it wasn't a gentle peace. It was the peace of exhaustion, fear, and submission. The treaty was signed on Earth, in the same city where the United Nations had once stood. Representatives from all 844 surviving council species came to the human homeworld, the planet they had once voted to enslave. Now they came to kneel. Fleet Admiral Tae-1 stood at the head of the conference table. He was older now, his hair gray, his face lined with scars from 15 years of war. Around him stood the other human commanders who had won the war. Admiral Ji-woo, Colonel Hyun, Engineer Murray, Commander Doyun. They were legends now, their names spoken with fear and respect across the galaxy. The council representatives sat in silence, waiting. They had no negotiating power. They had lost the war completely. Now they would accept whatever terms humanity demanded. Tae-1 spoke. His voice was calm but carried the weight of absolute authority. 15 years ago, you came to our world with a simple demand. Surrender or be enslaved. 847. Second, Tae-1 continued, all species will disarm to defensive forces only. You may maintain enough ships to protect your own worlds from pirates and natural disasters. Nothing more. Any species found building offensive warships will face human intervention. Third, human observers will be stationed in every major government across the galaxy. You will provide them full access to your military and industrial data. Any attempt to hide weapons development or threaten another species will result in immediate response from human forces. Fourth, war reparations. Every species that participated in the attack on Earth will pay a percentage of their gross domestic product for the next 100 years. The credits will go toward rebuilding human colonies and compensating the families of those who died, defending our freedom. The terms were harsh, humiliating, but the council representatives had no power to refuse. The FISA representative, a young female who had lost her entire family in the war, spoke quietly. "And if we refuse?" Jiwoo answered before Taewon could. Her voice was cold. "Then we activate the Genesis Protocol on your homeworld. Your species will be extinct in 2 generations. We kept the virus samples specifically for this purpose. Try us." The THESA representative went pale and said nothing more. Taewon continued. Fifth and final term. Any species that proves they can govern themselves peacefully, that protects the rights of their citizens, that treats other species with respect will be welcomed as equals. Humanity has no interest in being tyrants. But we will not allow another council to rise. We will not allow any species to threaten others the way you threatened us. He stood, placing his hands on the table and leaning forward. You came to Earth thinking you would enslave us. Instead, you created the one thing you feared most. A species powerful enough to enforce peace across the entire galaxy. We are now the dominant power. Not because we wanted to be, but because you forced us to become it. We will rule through strength. We will maintain order through fear. And any species that steps out of line, that threatens war, that tries to build weapons of conquest, will learn what happens when you anger humanity. We showed you during the war. Do not make us show you again. The treaty was signed. Every species representative put their mark on the document agreeing to human terms. They had no choice. The new order had begun. In the years that followed, humanity reshaped the galaxy according to their vision. They weren't gentle rulers. They couldn't afford to be. The galaxy had seen what happened when weak governments tried to maintain peace through diplomacy and trust. It led to war. So humans maintained peace through strength. Fleet Admiral Taewon became the first Terran overseer, commanding a military force that spanned the galaxy. Human ships patrolled trade routes, enforced treaties, and responded to any hint of aggression with overwhelming force. Species that followed the rules were left alone. Those that didn't were crushed. A small rebellion on a mining colony was put down in 3 days. The species that had started it lost their right to space travel for 50 years. A border dispute between 2 species threatened to escalate to war. Human mediators arrived, listened to both sides, made a decision, and enforced it. Both species accepted the judgment because refusing meant facing human military intervention. Pirates who had operated freely during the chaos of war found themselves hunted by Admiral Jiwoo's fleets. She showed no mercy. Pirates were given one chance to surrender. If they refused, they were destroyed. Within 5 years, piracy in human-controlled space was virtually eliminated. Colonel Hyan led the war crimes tribunals. Council officers who had committed atrocities during the war were hunted down, tried, and punished. Some were executed, others were imprisoned. The message was clear. There were consequences for cruelty, even in war. Dr. Hana led the technological revolution. Human technology, refined through 15 years of desperate innovation, was shared with other species. Medicine, manufacturing, energy production. The galaxy experienced a renaissance of advancement, but military technology remained firmly in human control. No species was allowed to develop weapons that could threaten human superiority. The 3 founding species that had refused to surrender, the Vorath, Thesa, and Kelman Primarch, received special treatment. They were stripped of all military capability. Human occupiers governed their worlds directly. Their populations were reduced, their industries dismantled. They were made examples of what happened when species chose extinction over peace. The Vorath, who had been one of the galaxy's most powerful species, were reduced to a fraction of their former population. Their homeworld was divided into sectors, each monitored by human forces. They were forbidden from leaving their system without permission. The Thesa, proud and ancient, were humiliated by occupation. Human governors made decisions for them. Their culture, their traditions, their independence was stripped away. The Kelman Primarch, who had started the conflict, suffered the most. Their leadership was executed for war crimes. Their government was dissolved. They existed now only at humanity's pleasure. It was cruel. It was harsh. But it was also effective. Within 7 years of the war's end, the galaxy was more peaceful than it had been in thousands of years. Species that had feuded for centuries were forced to cooperate under human oversight. Resources were shared more fairly. Trade flourished under human protection. Some species praised humanity as saviors who had brought order to chaos. Others cursed them as tyrants who had replaced one empire with another. The truth was somewhere in between. Humanity had become what the Council feared. The dominant species. The ultimate power. The ones who made the rules and enforced them with military might, but unlike the Council, humanity remembered what it felt like to be threatened with enslavement. They remembered the fear, the anger, the determination to be free no matter the cost. So they ruled with a simple principle: freedom for those who respected it, destruction for those who threatened it. 20 years after the war ended, Captain Sujin, the specialist who had leaked the Genesis protocol, stood before a memorial on Earth. It was a massive wall of names, listing every human who had died in the war. 3 million names carved in black stone. A young alien child, a Kelman, stood next to her. The child was part of an educational program, learning about the war that had reshaped the galaxy. Why did humans fight so hard? The child asked innocently. The Council was so much bigger. You could have just surrendered. Sujin looked down at the child. Because surrender meant slavery, and humans would rather die than live as slaves. But so many died, the child said, reading the names on the wall. 3 million. Wasn't peace worth more than freedom? Sujin knelt down to the child's level. No, freedom is worth any price. Peace without freedom is just slavery with a different name. Our people understood that. We chose to fight, to die if necessary, rather than kneel. She stood looking at the memorial. Your people, the Council, they gave us a choice. Surrender or die. They thought we'd choose survival. They didn't understand that for humans there are things worth more than survival. The child was quiet for a moment. Is that why you're so scary? Why everyone's afraid of humans? Sujin smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. We're scary because we proved we mean what we say. We told the Council we'd rather burn the galaxy down than be enslaved. And we showed them we weren't bluffing. Now everyone knows, humans keep their promises. Especially the threats. She looked out across the memorial grounds. In the distance, she could see the old Council chamber, now a museum. The building where 847 species had voted unanimously to enslave Earth. Inside, that museum was a single exhibit now. The vote record. 847 votes for enslavement. 0 against, the plaque beneath it read. They were unanimous in their decision. They were unanimous in their regret. Sujin took the child's hand and walked toward the museum. Come on, I'll show you what started all this. Maybe your generation will learn from our mistakes. Maybe you'll build a galaxy where no one ever has to choose between freedom and death. The child walked alongside her. And if someone threatens peace again, what will humans do? Sujin stopped walking. She looked directly at the child with absolute seriousness. We'll remind them why the galaxy kneels to us. We'll remind them what happened to the last ones who threatened humanity. We'll show them that we're not peaceful because we're weak. We're peaceful because we're strong enough to enforce peace. And if they don't listen, then we'll do what we did to the Vorath, the Thesa, and the Kelman Primarch. We'll destroy them so completely that their extinction serves as a warning to everyone else. That's the price of peace in this galaxy. Everyone stays civilized, or we make them regret it. The child nodded slowly, understanding dawning in its young eyes. This was the new reality. Humanity ruled not through love or respect, but through demonstrated capability for absolute destruction. They entered the museum together. Behind them, the memorial wall stood silent, 3 million names carved in stone. A reminder of the price humanity had paid for freedom, and a warning to anyone who might forget what happens when you threaten Earth. The galaxy had voted to enslave humanity. Now they all lived under human rule. Some called it justice. Others called it tyranny. Humanity called it survival, and the galaxy learned to call them Sir.